Roger wiped the grease off his hands for the 5th time that morning, squinting against the harsh sunlight that beat down on the massive scrapyard where he worked. In the universe's grand hierarchy, humans were rarely respected. Mostly, they were seen as laborers, janitors, or at best, mediocre tinkerers. Yet here he was, in the middle of a star system where alien emperors and interstellar nobility pranced around, and he was about to become part of something that could either ruin him or make him infamous. The news had spread like a supernova. Emperor Xylor, the ruler of the Therian Dominion, had decided that humans were amusing. That morning, the Imperial transmission had announced that a special gift was being delivered to Roger. No one knew why. Some thought it was a punishment. Others speculated it was an experiment. Roger, who had fixed a Starliner engine for a visiting noble just last month, shrugged and went back to polishing an old hoverbike. When the transport landed, the ground shook with a low rumble. A metallic crate was lowered via anti-gravity beams. Roger stared at it, heart thumping. The crate hissed and clicked. Then, with a sound like molten metal being poured into ice, the crate slid open. Inside, lying awkwardly on a bed of cosmic hay, was a dragon. But not the kind of dragons you saw in holofilms or the Emperor's ceremonial displays. This one was small, its scales dull, one wing torn, and a front leg twisted at a painful angle. Its tail seemed broken, coiling unnaturally. The dragon blinked at Roger with eyes that glimmered with intelligence and fear. "This is your gift," the imperial voice boomed from a hologram above. "A rare Therian drake. I trust you'll find it amusing." The dragon let out a pitiful groan. The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "It won't fly. It won't fight. But it will certainly make your life interesting." Roger stared. The joke was cruel. The guards laughed. Even some of his human co-workers, who had sneaked in to watch, chuckled nervously. Roger's mind raced. "Interesting," he muttered. The dragon shifted slightly, trying to lift itself but clearly in pain. It hissed softly, almost apologetically. He crouched beside it. "Hey buddy," he said gently. "Don't worry. I've fixed worse than a broken Starliner engine." The dragon's eyes followed his every movement, a mix of suspicion and hope. Roger didn't know if it understood him, but something about its gaze made his chest tighten. This wasn't just a mechanical problem. This was alive. Over the next few hours, Roger set up a makeshift workshop. Using his engineering knowledge and sheer human stubbornness, he inspected the dragon's wings, tail, and legs. Most alien veterinarians would have declared the dragon unsalvageable, but humans had a habit of solving impossible problems with duct tape, ingenuity, and stubborn optimism. He crafted a brace for the broken leg, reinforced the wings with lightweight alloys, and created a small hover support harness that would allow the dragon to move without falling. The dragon, whom Roger decided to call Ember, hissed every time he adjusted a brace or placed a tool nearby. But as the hours passed, Ember's hissing softened to curious murmurs. At one point, it leaned its head into Roger's hands, letting him adjust the wing splints without resistance. Roger chuckled. "Looks like we're going to be partners, huh?" Night fell over the scrapyard, and Roger sat beside Ember, sharing a meal of synthesized meat and water. Ember nudged a portion of the food with its nose, testing it cautiously. When it finally ate, Roger felt a rare spark of satisfaction. The Emperor had meant to humiliate him, to make a human look foolish in front of alien eyes. But Roger wasn't just a mechanic. He was a problem solver. An Ember, broken though it was, could be fixed. He spent the next week feeding, repairing, and bonding with Ember. Word spread quietly through the Undercity. A human had been gifted a dragon, and was not only keeping it alive but improving its condition. Some aliens began to visit discreetly, curious to see if the joke had truly backfired. They found Roger teaching Ember to use the hover support harness, coaxing it to hop short distances, and even letting it try small, tentative glides from low platforms. Emperor Xylor, meanwhile, monitored the progress from his palace. He watched through surveillance drones, expecting to see ridicule and failure. But what he saw instead was human ingenuity at work. Ember's movements grew stronger, more confident. Its eyes glimmered with life and intelligence that the Emperor hadn't anticipated. And with every successful glide, every healed wing adjustment, The Emperor's amusement turned slowly into irritation. One night, Roger lay on the scrapyard floor, exhausted. Ember curled beside him, its broken leg braced, wings folded neatly. The dragon's body radiated a warmth that no machine could replicate. Roger whispered, "You're going to be something amazing, Ember. They'll all see." The dragon blinked slowly, almost in understanding. In that moment, Roger realized something important. He wasn't just fixing a dragon. He was forging a bond, one that no emperor or imperial jest could undo. By the end of the first month, Ember could stand unaided and take short glides across the scrapyard. Aliens who came to mock now watched in awe. The laughter that had once accompanied Emperor Xylor's gift had vanished, replaced by whispers of astonishment. Roger didn't just gain a dragon. He had earned respect, a rare, hard-won thing for a human in a galaxy that rarely saw them as equals. And Ember? Ember had found someone who cared, who would see past the scars and the brokenness. Together, they were becoming unstoppable, and the Emperor, somewhere in his palace, was beginning to regret ever underestimating the quiet, stubborn skill of a human mechanic. The galaxy was not used to seeing a human tame a dragon. In most star systems, humans were considered too fragile, too short-lived, and too limited in scope to accomplish feats like bending the will of an alien creature, or worse, teaching it to fly again. But Roger didn't care about galactic expectations. He only cared about Ember. By the second month, Ember had progressed beyond even Roger's wildest expectations. The dragon could glide across half the scrapyard without support, and could lift small objects with its talons. Its scales, once dull and cracked, now shimmered faintly in iridescent hues under the artificial lights Roger had rigged for training. What was meant as a cruel joke had become a marvel. The Emperor's surveillance drones began sending urgent reports. Xylor's amusement had curdled into something darker, frustration and fear. "It's thriving," he muttered, pacing before the holoscreen that displayed Ember's every move. "It should be crippled. It should be pathetic." How? But Roger was simple in his approach. He didn't need sophisticated alien techniques or exotic tools. He had his human ingenuity. He had patience. And he had a bond with Ember that no imperial decree could sever. Every day he refined the braces, tested wing strength, and taught Ember subtle control over its movements. Roger had even built a propulsion assist, tiny energy thrusters on the tail and back wings, that allowed Ember to correct its balance mid-air. One afternoon, a group of Xylor's envoys arrived at the scrapyard, cloaked in expensive armor and bristling with weapons. Their mission was clear: retrieve the dragon, or eliminate it if the human had somehow made it too strong. Roger greeted them with his usual calm, wiping his hands on a rag. Ember lay beside him, wings folded but eyes sharp and intelligent. "Can I help you?" he asked casually, though his mind raced. The tallest envoy sneered. "The Emperor has decreed the dragon belongs to him. Step aside, human, or face consequences." Roger shrugged, leaning on his workbench. "I don't know who told you that, but last I checked, the dragon didn't understand Therian imperial law." Ember tilted its head, almost as if agreeing. The envoy's eyes narrowed. "You dare mock the Emperor?" Roger's grin was slow, deliberate. "No, I dare protect something alive. You should try it sometime." The envoy's hand went to his weapon, but before he could act, Ember shifted. Its small wings stretched, catching air currents created by the scrapyard fans. Then, with a sudden burst of power from the thrusters Roger had installed, Ember shot upwards, claws extended and tail whipping. The envoy stumbled back in shock. It wasn't an attack exactly, but Ember's movement made it clear. It would defend itself and Roger, if necessary. The envoys, unprepared for a dragon with mechanical enhancements and the cleverness of a human-trained mind, retreated, swearing that this was a violation of imperial law. Roger didn't chase them. He knew the Emperor would hear soon enough. That night, Roger worked late into the artificial twilight he had rigged for Ember's training. The dragon's muscles were stronger, its movements more fluid, and its trust in Roger absolute. "Tomorrow," Roger whispered, "we test your first real flight. The Emperor will want to see you fail. Let's show him what we're made of." Ember blinked, its golden eyes gleaming, and nudged Roger's shoulder with its snout, a gesture of understanding. By the third week, Ember's flight tests became legendary. Aliens and humans alike began sneaking into the scrapyard to witness the dragon's ascension. Ember soared gracefully, twisting and banking in ways the Emperor never imagined a crippled dragon could. Roger had also installed emergency protocols. If the dragon faltered, energy thrusters and wing braces ensured it wouldn't crash. But with each flight, Ember needed the support less and less. News of a human raising a dragon reached the Emperor, and he could no longer contain his irritation. Xylor himself arrived, flanked by elite guards, expecting spectacle and humiliation. What he found instead was awe. Ember glided in wide circles above the scrapyard, catching the sunset light, scales shimmering like liquid fire. Roger stood below, hands tucked in his pockets, calm as ever. You dare defy me?" the Emperor demanded, voice trembling with anger. Roger tilted his head. "I'm not defying you, Emperor. I'm helping something live. You gave me a broken dragon. I fixed it. Simple as that." Xylor's face twisted. This is impossible. That dragon should have been a joke, a laughingstock. And yet, he gestured helplessly at Ember, who landed gracefully behind Roger, tail curling protectively around him. Roger smirked. "Seems your joke didn't land quite the way you planned." The Emperor's anger escalated. "Take it back. Remove the human's control, or I will destroy him." Roger didn't flinch. "Go ahead. But if you do, you destroy your own reputation. Everyone's watching. They know who fixed Ember, who taught it to fly. You'd look petty and cruel. And besides," he patted Ember's head, "we're ready for anything." Xylor's mind raced. The dragon was no longer a fragile joke. It was powerful, smart, and loyal to Roger. Destroying it would spark outrage across the galaxy. Not only that, humans were notoriously unpredictable. One human's ingenuity could unravel an empire. And Roger had already proven himself capable of astonishing feats. Fuming, the Emperor withdrew, leaving his guards behind to monitor from a distance. Roger and Ember watched the royal vessels vanish into the stars. Ember let out a low, triumphant roar. Roger chuckled. "Not bad for a couple of misfits, huh?" In the weeks that followed, Roger and Ember became a legend. The story of the human who had outwitted an emperor and trained a broken dragon spread across planets. Other humans working in obscure corners of the galaxy took heart, realizing that cleverness, patience, and empathy could achieve what brute force and politics could not. Emperor Xylor, meanwhile, retreated to his palace brooding. He had underestimated humans, and he had underestimated Roger. The next time he visited, he knew he would need a strategy far more cunning than before. But Roger wasn't just a mechanic. He was a problem solver, a dragon tamer, and a rising symbol that even the galaxy's mightiest rulers could not control the human spirit. That night, as Roger sat beside Ember, he whispered, "They think this is a joke. Let's see how long they laugh when we take flight beyond the stars." Ember nudged him, wings stretching, a silent promise that they were ready for whatever the galaxy threw at them. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Emperor clenched his fists, realizing that the gift he had intended as mockery had instead birthed a legend, and one that no empire could undo. The stars shone cold and distant over the scrapyard, but Roger felt a warmth that no sunlight could match. Ember perched on a reinforced platform, wings extended, muscles taut, and eyes gleaming with intelligence and trust. The galaxy had watched the rise of a human and his dragon, and whispers of their exploits had reached even the most remote systems. Yet the greatest test was still to come. Emperor Xylor was not the sort to forgive or forget. After the humiliation of his joke backfiring, he had prepared a challenge that was not just about strength, but cunning, intimidation, and terror. A grand tournament of galactic power, designed to humiliate Roger in front of rulers, mercenaries, and aliens across multiple sectors. The rules were simple. Retrieve Ember and bring him to the Emperor, or face total annihilation of the scrapyard, and potentially Roger's life. When the Imperial fleet arrived, Roger didn't panic. Instead, he walked calmly to Ember, patting the dragon's neck. "Ready for our flight?" he asked. Ember hissed softly, wings quivering in anticipation. Together, they launched from the scrapyard, ascending into the twilight sky. With the propulsion assist Roger had engineered, Ember sliced through the air like a living arrow, evading laser patrols and interceptors. The fleet tried to box them in. Imperial warships moved in perfect formation, but Roger had anticipated every move. Using a combination of Ember's agility, his knowledge of ship mechanics, and sheer human creativity, they dodged tractor beams and scrambled sensors. At one point, Ember dived between two massive cruisers, the energy thrusters igniting with a crackle, and soared into a narrow canyon, disappearing from the fleet's targeting systems entirely. Below, the galaxy watched in awe. Holobroadcasts picked up the chase, and humans and aliens alike began calling Roger and Ember the impossible duo. Propaganda channels in the Emperor's court failed to spin the story in his favor. Every evasive maneuver, every daring glide, was a testament to human ingenuity, and a direct affront to the Emperor's pride. But Xylor was relentless. He unleashed a new weapon one never before seen. A gravity net, designed to pin Ember mid-flight and render him helpless. Roger studied it carefully from his small scout scanner. "This isn't just a test of skill," he muttered. "This is a test of mind and trust." He adjusted Ember's thrusters for rapid countermaneuvers, using calculated bursts to shift air pressure and trajectory. Ember responded perfectly, banking sharply and narrowly escaping the net. It was then that Roger realized the final part of their plan. The Emperor had underestimated one thing: the bond between human and dragon. No machine, no weapon, no strategy could replicate the instinctive trust and understanding that had developed between them. Whispering softly, Roger guided Ember through complex aerial maneuvers. Dives, spirals, sudden ascents, all synchronized perfectly. The Emperor's fleet faltered, unable to predict their unpredictable, fluid tactics. Finally, they reached the edge of an uncharted asteroid field. A dangerous maze of jagged rock and unstable energy currents. Most pilots and ships would have balked, but for Roger and Ember, this was their element. Using Ember's small size and maneuverability, they zipped between asteroids with precision, forcing the Emperor's larger ships into collision courses. One cruiser misjudged a turn and clipped an asteroid, exploding in a cascade of fire that illuminated the field. The broadcasted images made the galaxy gasp. Then came the final confrontation. The Emperor deployed a massive sentinel, a bioengineered creature designed to hunt and destroy Ember. It was faster, stronger, and heavily armored. Roger tightened his grip on the control harness he had engineered for Ember. "Stay close," he whispered. "We've got this." Ember lunged, wings flaring, tail whipping with controlled force. The sentinel attacked, claws rending the air, but Ember dodged gracefully. Roger guided the dragon into a narrow canyon, using the terrain to limit the sentinel's movements. With a precise combination of thruster boosts and aerodynamic flips, Ember rammed the sentinel into an asteroid wall, shattering its armor. Sparks flew. The sentinel roared, but Ember didn't relent, circling it until it collapsed completely. The galaxy held its collective breath. In a final spectacular display, Ember spiraled upward, catching the last rays of the setting star, and let out a roar that echoed across light years. Roger raised his arms in triumph. The impossible had been achieved. The Emperor, watching through his holofeed, turned pale. His attempt to assert dominance had failed utterly. Returning to the scrapyard, Roger and Ember were met with cheers from humans and aliens alike. Messages flooded in from distant sectors, declaring the duo a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and courage. The Emperor could no longer control the narrative. He had underestimated the human spirit, and the galaxy now knew it. In the weeks that followed, Roger and Ember trained even harder. The dragon's wings had fully healed, muscles strengthened, and intelligence honed. Roger had created enhancements that allowed Ember to glide in space for short periods, giving them unmatched mobility. Together, they became protectors, rescuing stranded ships, stopping pirate raids, and exploring uncharted territories. Emperor Xylor, humiliated but wiser, withdrew to his palace, secretly respecting the human who had outwitted him. But in the quiet corners of the galaxy, whispers continued. A human mechanic and his dragon had not only survived the Emperor's cruelty, they had transformed a cruel joke into a legend that would be remembered for generations. One evening, as Roger polished Ember's scales and checked the thruster harnesses, he smiled. "We did it, buddy. They thought you were a joke. They thought I was weak. But together, we're unstoppable. Ember nudged him gently, resting its head on his shoulder. The bond between them was no longer just human and dragon. It was trust, respect, and friendship forged through challenge and triumph. And somewhere far above, Emperor Xylor watched in silence, knowing that a gift intended to mock had instead created a force the galaxy would never forget.